Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you today about something that's silently undermining your ability to walk, run, climb stairs, and live actively, your leg strength. We don't often think about our legs until something goes wrong, weakness, stiffness, or those sudden painful cramps that jolt you out of bed at night. Now, most people assume it's age. Some blame dehydration. Others think it's lack of exercise. While those play a role, today I want to reveal something much more surprising. Two common foods that are actively sabotaging your leg health. When we think about leg strength, we often associate it with exercise, age, or nutrition in general. But there's a far more specific and insidious factor that's commonly overlooked: the health of your blood vessels. Your legs are home to some of the largest and most hardworking muscles in the body: the quadriceps, hamstrings, calves, glutes. They support your posture, allow you to move, climb, and stand. But these muscles are entirely dependent on something we tend to ignore: blood flow. Here's what most people don't realize: the strength of your legs is only as good as the circulation feeding those muscles. And that's where a certain group of foods is doing more damage than you might suspect: processed meats, bacon, hot dogs, deli turkey, ham, sausage. They're convenient, they're familiar, they're even considered a staple in some households. But these foods are loaded with compounds that don't just interfere with general health. They target your vascular system and, by extension, your muscle performance, especially in the legs. Let's start with the structure of your blood vessels. Your arteries, especially those that run down to your legs, are lined with a delicate single layer of cells called the endothelium. Think of this as a biological Teflon, smooth, flexible, and vital for regulating blood flow. This lining controls the release of nitric oxide, a molecule that allows your vessels to relax and widen. This dilation is crucial. It ensures that oxygen-rich blood can reach deep into your leg muscles when they're being used during a walk, a climb, even when you're just standing. Now, here's the problem. Processed meats contain nitrates and nitrites, which are added as preservatives and to enhance flavor and color. When these compounds enter the body, especially in the presence of heat, like during cooking, they can convert into nitrosamines, known carcinogens, that also damage the endothelium. Over time, repeated exposure to these compounds leads to a stiffening and narrowing of your arteries, a process called endothelial dysfunction. What does this mean for your legs? It means the muscles in your legs aren't getting the oxygen they need to function properly. Picture this: you're going for a walk and your calf muscles contract. To keep moving, those muscles need a steady supply of oxygenated blood. The arteries feeding them are compromised, narrowed, inflamed, or stiff. The delivery system breaks down. Your muscles fatigue faster. You feel heaviness, maybe even cramping. And over time, that regular fatigue contributes to atrophy, the actual weakening of muscle fibers. But nitrates aren't the only problem. Processed meats are notoriously high in sodium, and excessive salt contributes to hypertension. High blood pressure accelerates vascular damage. It places additional strain on the arterial walls, causing microscopic injuries that trigger inflammation and the buildup of plaque, a dangerous process called atherosclerosis. This isn't just about heart health. Atherosclerosis in the peripheral arteries, especially those supplying your legs, is known as peripheral artery disease, PAD. It's shockingly underdiagnosed. One of the hallmark signs: leg cramps and pain during walking, also known as claudication. In its early stages, it may feel like soreness or fatigue, but it's not from muscle strain. It's from poor circulation. So when we talk about processed meats damaging your leg strength, we're really talking about a cascade of problems rooted in vascular dysfunction. Weak blood flow leads to weak muscles. Cramping is your body's distress signal, a sign that your muscles are not getting the oxygen or electrolytes they need. The inflammatory compounds in processed meats don't stop with the endothelium. They also promote systemic inflammation, which interferes with mitochondrial function inside your muscle cells. The mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cell. They convert nutrients into energy. When they're inflamed, they become less efficient. That means your muscles get tired faster, they recover slower, and over time you lose endurance and power. You might notice that you can't stand as long, or you avoid stairs. Maybe you sit more than you used to. These subtle signs are often chalked up to age, but in many cases, they're directly tied to diet-induced vascular decline. So what can be done? The answer is simple, but powerful. Start by removing the source of the damage. Reducing or eliminating processed meats can stop the assault on your blood vessels. And once the damage stops, the body has an incredible ability to repair itself. The endothelium can regenerate, blood flow improves, and your leg muscles begin to receive what they've been missing: oxygen, nutrients, and the energy they need to function fully. This isn't about restriction for the sake of it. It's about reclaiming function, reclaiming strength. Your legs are your foundation. They carry you through life, and it all starts with what you choose to put on your plate. When it comes to everyday muscle health, especially the strength and stamina of your legs, most people think of protein, exercise, or maybe hydration. But what many overlook is the profound influence of blood sugar and refined carbohydrates on muscle function. Let's talk specifically about refined sugars, the kind you find in candy bars, pastries, sodas, sweetened cereals, and even seemingly healthy energy drinks. One of the most damaging forms is high fructose corn syrup, which is found in everything from soft drinks to salad dressings. These sugars do more than spike your blood sugar. They fundamentally alter the environment in which your muscles operate. To understand this, we need to look at what happens inside your body. The moment you consume refined sugar, within minutes of intake, blood glucose levels rise. Your pancreas responds by releasing insulin, the hormone that helps shuttle glucose into your cells where it can be used for energy. This process is normal and essential in a balanced diet. But when the intake of sugar is excessive or frequent, especially in its refined forms, the system becomes overloaded. Your cells, including your muscle cells, start to become resistant to insulin's signal. This means they can't absorb glucose efficiently. So even though there's plenty of sugar in your bloodstream, your muscles become starved of energy. Over time, this leads to reduced muscle endurance and performance. Your legs feel sluggish, heavy, or tire more quickly with activity. But it doesn't stop there. Frequent sugar spikes also lead to magnesium and potassium depletion. These two minerals are essential for muscle contraction and relaxation. Magnesium acts like a gatekeeper for calcium, which is required for muscles to contract. Potassium is involved in the electrical signaling that tells your muscles when to move. Without enough of either, the nerves and muscle fibers misfire, leading to spasms, twitching, or full-blown cramps. That's why one of the classic signs of an electrolyte imbalance, often driven by diet, is cramping in the legs, especially at night. Many people wake up with a painful spasm in the calf or foot and don't realize that their high sugar intake from the previous day might be the root cause. There's more. Sugar creates a condition in the body known as low-grade chronic inflammation. It triggers the release of pro-inflammatory cytokines, chemical messengers that interfere with insulin signaling, further degrading muscle fuel absorption. These cytokines also increase the risk of microinjuries inside muscle tissue, making your legs feel sore or stiff even without strenuous activity. Over time, the chronic presence of these inflammatory markers contributes to a phenomenon called sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass. But what many don't realize is that sarcopenia is not just a matter of age, it's also driven by diet. People in their 40s and 50s can start experiencing a steady decline in leg strength, not because they're getting older, but because their muscles are living in a toxic metabolic environment, one driven by refined sugars. And let's not forget the vascular consequences. Refined sugar contributes to the formation of advanced glycation end products, or AGs. These are harmful compounds formed when sugar binds to proteins or fats in the blood. AGs damage the lining of blood vessels and make them stiff and narrow, especially in the tiny capillaries that serve your extremities, like your calves, feet, and thighs. This vascular stiffening further compromises blood flow. So not only are your muscles underfueled due to insulin resistance, but they're also oxygen starved because blood isn't reaching them efficiently. It's a double hit: impaired fuel delivery and impaired oxygenation, both essential for strong, resilient leg muscles. The result: cramps that strike at rest or during activity, weakness when climbing stairs, legs that feel shaky after only mild exertion, or the need to sit more often because standing for long periods becomes uncomfortable. And unfortunately, this doesn't happen overnight. It happens quietly, gradually. So quietly that you may not connect your declining leg performance with your daily food choices. But here's the hopeful part. Once you reduce or eliminate these refined sugars and high fructose corn syrup from your diet, the healing begins. Insulin sensitivity can improve in a matter of days. Magnesium and potassium levels can stabilize. Inflammation begins to resolve, and your muscles can start to function as they were meant to, drawing in fuel efficiently, responding to nerve signals with precision, and resisting cramping and fatigue. This isn't about cutting all sweetness from life. It's about being conscious of the source. Natural sugars found in fruit, for example, come packaged with fiber, vitamins, antioxidants, all of which support vascular and muscular health. But added sugars, especially in processed foods and beverages, provide no such benefits. They only sabotage the very systems that keep your legs strong and pain-free. So the next time you experience a leg cramp or feel that loss of stamina, take a step back and look at your sugar intake, not just from obvious desserts, but from hidden sources like sauces, breads, and beverages. By shifting away from refined sugars and toward whole, nutrient-dense foods, you can restore the natural power and resilience of your legs and reclaim the freedom to move through life with strength and confidence. Muscles are highly dynamic tissues. They respond to training, they recover from damage, and they adapt to the demands we place on them. But one key function that's often misunderstood is metabolism, the way your muscle cells process and use energy. And one of the most significant disruptors of healthy muscle metabolism is refined sugar, especially in the form of high fructose corn syrup. Let's break this down simply. Your muscles need fuel to contract, perform, and recover. That fuel primarily comes from glucose, a form of sugar that circulates in your bloodstream. But in order for glucose to enter your muscle cells, it must be guided in by insulin, which acts like a key unlocking the cell door. Here's where refined sugars disrupt that process. When you eat a meal or drink a beverage high in refined sugar, such as soda, sweetened coffee drinks, energy bars, or many breakfast cereals, your blood sugar spikes rapidly. Your pancreas releases a surge of insulin to handle that spike. But repeated sugar overload trains your body to respond less effectively over time. Your muscle cells become insulin resistant. This means they ignore the signal. So instead of welcoming in the glucose they need, they shut the door. This is one of the earliest breakdowns in muscle energy metabolism. And the consequence is simple, but profound. Your muscles don't get the fuel they need. It's like trying to run an engine on empty. You may not feel it right away, but over time, the effects start to show up in daily life. Your legs fatigue faster, your recovery from exertion slows down, and your muscle endurance begins to drop. This issue isn't limited to athletes or older adults. Even young, otherwise healthy people can experience subtle symptoms: leg weakness, decreased stamina, or increased soreness if their diet is chronically high in refined sugars. But there's another layer to this. When sugar remains in the bloodstream, instead of being absorbed, it begins to attach itself to proteins in a process called glycation, These sugar protein complexes form what's known as advanced glycation end products, or AGs. These AGs cause inflammation and oxidative stress, particularly in small blood vessels and nerve endings. Now, think about your legs. They contain some of the longest nerves and the smallest capillaries in the body. That means they're uniquely vulnerable to glycation damage. If these delicate networks are compromised, you may experience pain, tingling, numbness, or very commonly, cramping. Your muscles are now not only underfueled, but also dealing with oxidative stress and poor circulation. Let's go even deeper. Inside every muscle cell are mitochondria, tiny structures that function like miniature power plants. They convert nutrients into usable energy, ATP, but when sugar is constantly flooding the system, the mitochondria become overwhelmed and inefficient. They produce less energy and more byproducts like free radicals. This oxidative stress damages the mitochondria themselves, leading to a gradual decline in muscle efficiency and repair. This is why someone who eats a sugar-heavy diet may feel exhausted even after mild activity, or they may notice that small tasks, carrying groceries, walking upstairs, feel harder than they used to. The energy machinery of the muscle is no longer running optimally. And over time, this leads not only to fatigue, but to muscle loss, especially in the lower body. It's important to understand that refined sugar doesn't just disrupt energy production in the moment. It also interferes with protein synthesis, the body's ability to build and maintain lean muscle mass. Muscle growth and repair rely on a balance of hormones, enzymes, and cellular signaling. But insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, and glycation all throw off that delicate system. This makes it harder for your muscles to rebuild after exertion or injury. And the legs, which bear the weight of your body and are used constantly, begin to lose their structural strength. There's also a behavioral component. Diets high in refined sugar tend to leave people feeling sluggish and irritable. They often lead to cravings for more sugar-rich foods, which means that over time, nutrient-dense foods like leafy greens, whole grains, legumes, and healthy fats are displaced from the diet. These are the very foods that provide your muscles with magnesium, potassium, antioxidants, and amino acids needed for optimal performance. What does this mean for your leg health? It means that even if you're moving regularly, walking, exercising, staying active, your progress may be undermined by what's happening at the cellular level. If your muscles can't access energy efficiently, if their mitochondria are inflamed, and if their protein building processes are blocked, then strength, endurance, and resilience will suffer. You may feel like you're doing all the right things, but your legs still feel weak or prone to cramps. The good news is that these changes are reversible. When you remove refined sugars from your diet, even for a short period, your cells begin to respond to insulin again. Inflammation begins to recede. Mitochondria start to recover. Your muscles become more efficient at using fuel, and your body begins building, not breaking down muscle. Within a matter of weeks, people often report fewer cramps, better stamina, and stronger legs, not because of a new workout, but because the underlying metabolic dysfunction has been removed. So while sugar may seem harmless, just a little sweetness here or there, it can quietly unravel the most fundamental systems your leg muscles rely on to stay strong, responsive, and pain-free. And by understanding how it impacts muscle metabolism, we gain something even more powerful than knowledge. We gain the ability to make a change that truly improves how we move through the world. One of the most overlooked yet essential aspects of muscle function, especially when it comes to the legs, is electrolyte balance. These minerals are not just footnotes in nutrition labels or buzzwords on sports drink commercials. They are fundamental to how your muscles contract, relax, and recover. Among these electrolytes, magnesium and potassium stand out as especially critical for healthy muscle performance These two minerals regulate everything from fluid balance to electrical impulses that signal your muscles when to move. When they're in short supply, it becomes increasingly difficult for your muscles, especially in your legs, to function smoothly. That's where the problem with refined sugars becomes more profound. Consuming high levels of refined sugar from processed snacks, baked goods, soda, and hidden sugars in packaged foods can quietly deplete your body's stores of both magnesium and potassium. And this depletion doesn't take weeks or months. It can begin after just a few days of high sugar intake. Let's break this down. When you consume refined sugar, it's especially in concentrated forms like high fructose corn syrup, your blood sugar rises rapidly. Your body, in an effort to process and stabilize that sugar spike, requires increased magnesium. Magnesium is used as a cofactor in over 300 enzymatic reactions, and many of these are directly involved in glucose metabolism and insulin regulation. In short, your body needs magnesium to process sugar. So the more sugar you eat, the more magnesium you burn through. But magnesium isn't just used for blood sugar management, it's essential for muscle relaxation. It counterbalances calcium in your muscle fibers. Calcium causes muscles to contract. Magnesium allows them to release and relax. Without enough magnesium, your muscles may contract, but then struggle to relax. This is a classic setup for muscle cramping, often felt in the calves or feet, especially during the night. Now let's look at potassium. Potassium is one of the most important electrolytes in the human body. It supports muscle strength, nerve transmission, and cellular hydration. It also helps regulate heartbeat and maintains electrical conductivity in muscle fibers. But high sugar intake interferes with potassium balance in two ways. First, when you eat large amounts of sugar, your insulin levels spike. Elevated insulin causes your kidneys to excrete more potassium through the urine. In essence, sugar robs your body of potassium before it can even be used. Second, high fructose corn syrup, one of the most common forms of added sugar, places a particular burden on the liver. It's metabolized almost exclusively in the liver, and in the process, it creates a high demand for ATP, the energy currency of the cell. This depletes phosphate, which can affect electrolyte homeostasis, leading to further potassium loss. Why does this matter for your legs? Your legs contain some of the largest muscles in your body. They're responsible for walking, standing, balance, and posture. When potassium is low, the electrical signals from nerves to these muscles become erratic. That can lead to weakness, fatigue, or those unpredictable and painful leg cramps that come on suddenly during rest or physical activity. So now we have a two-pronged issue. Not only does sugar interfere with energy metabolism inside the muscle, as discussed earlier, it also depletes the very minerals that muscles rely on to work properly. That's why individuals who consume high amounts of refined sugar often experience a combination of symptoms: tired legs, heavy feeling calves, twitching muscles, and sudden cramps. These symptoms are not random. They are your body's way of signaling an imbalance that is often driven by what you're eating, or more precisely, what you're missing. It's important to note that even people who drink a lot of water can still suffer from cramping if their electrolytes are out of balance. Hydration isn't just about fluid. It's about the quality of that fluid and the minerals dissolved in it. Water without electrolytes can actually dilute the concentration of minerals in your body, especially if you've already lost potassium or magnesium due to excess sugar. This is also why some individuals experience cramping after exercise. The body is already losing electrolytes through sweat, and if the diet is high in refined sugar, the problem is compounded. Post-exercise recovery becomes harder, slower, and more uncomfortable. Now, here's the encouraging part. Restoring electrolyte balance doesn't require expensive supplements or extreme diets. It starts with removing the cause of the depletion. That means cutting back on refined sugars and processed foods that trigger the loss of magnesium and potassium in the first place. Then focus on foods that naturally replenish these minerals. Leafy greens like spinach and Swiss chard are excellent sources of magnesium. Bananas, sweet potatoes, avocados, and legumes are rich in potassium. These whole foods don't just provide electrolytes, they also offer fiber, antioxidants, and anti-inflammatory compounds that support muscle health and vascular function. When people make this shift, reducing added sugars and increasing mineral-rich whole foods, they often report rapid changes, fewer cramps, improved muscle tone, more energy during physical activity, and perhaps most importantly, a sense of control over a problem that once seemed mysterious or unavoidable. Muscle cramps and leg weakness aren't always the result of aging or bad luck. Often they are the consequence of subtle, repeated choices we make about what we eat. And when we give the body what it truly needs and take away what quietly harms it, remarkable improvements in strength, comfort, and performance can follow. Your legs are more than just tools for movement. They are densely populated with blood vessels that deliver oxygen and nutrients to the muscles that support every step you take, from the large femoral arteries that run deep through your thighs to the intricate web of capillaries reaching into your calves and feet. Vascular health is fundamental to leg strength, endurance, and comfort. But here's a reality that often goes unnoticed. Two of the most commonly consumed foods, processed meats and refined sugars, quietly erode the health of your blood vessels, reducing their ability to nourish your leg muscles. Over time, this leads to fatigue, weakness, and the kinds of cramps that disrupt not just physical activity, but daily life. Let's first understand how your blood vessels are designed to work. Inside every artery, including those in your legs, is a single layer of cells called the endothelium. This layer is remarkably intelligent. It senses changes in blood flow, adjusts vessel diameter, and regulates the release of nitric oxide, a molecule that helps your arteries dilate and maintain flexibility. When the endothelium is healthy, your blood flows freely and efficiently, delivering oxygen and nutrients exactly where they're needed. Now think about your leg muscles during movement. As they contract and expand, their metabolic demands increase. They require more oxygen, more glucose, more nutrients. Your blood vessels must respond instantly, widening to accommodate increased flow. But when they're damaged or inflamed, that flexibility disappears. The vessels stiffen, narrow, and resist dilation. Blood flow becomes sluggish. Muscles are starved of fuel. This is where diet begins to play a major role. Processed meats, such as bacon, ham, sausage, and cold cuts, are high in sodium, nitrates, and saturated fats. These substances promote a condition called endothelial dysfunction, where the vessel lining becomes irritated and less responsive. Over time, this irritation triggers inflammation, which leads to the accumulation of plaque, fatty deposits that begin to block blood flow altogether. Similarly, refined sugars, particularly in the form of high fructose corn syrup and added sugars in processed snacks and beverages, promote oxidative stress inside your vessels. This oxidative damage causes the endothelium to malfunction and accelerates glycation, a process where sugar binds to proteins in the blood and creates stiff, sticky compounds that clog and degrade your arteries. These are known as advanced glycation end products, or AGs, and they're particularly destructive to capillaries and smaller vessels like those in your legs. What does all of this mean in practical terms? When blood flow to your leg muscles is impaired, they can't function at full capacity. You may notice that your legs feel heavy when walking upstairs or fatigue quickly during exercise. After standing for a period of time, you might feel a dull ache or even sharp cramping. These symptoms are the result of a simple biological equation: oxygen demand exceeds oxygen delivery. In more severe cases, This poor circulation can lead to a condition known as intermittent claudication, pain in the legs that occurs during physical activity and resolves with rest. It's a hallmark symptom of peripheral artery disease. Had a condition rooted in blocked or narrowed arteries, most often in the lower extremities. It's far more common than most people think and is increasingly seen in individuals in their 40s and 50s, not just the elderly. Here's something critical to understand. This process doesn't happen suddenly. It unfolds silently over years, driven by repeated exposure to foods that chip away at vascular integrity, one bite at a time. You might not notice it at first, perhaps a little soreness after walking, or the need to sit more frequently. But over time, as the damage accumulates, it becomes harder to ignore. Fortunately, the body is remarkably resilient. The endothelium can regenerate, inflammation can be reversed, circulation can improve, but only if we remove the cause of the damage. When you eliminate processed meats and refined sugars from your diet, you give your blood vessels a chance to recover. Studies show that even within weeks, improvements in endothelial function can be measured. The arteries begin to regain flexibility. Nitric oxide levels increase, blood flow improves, and the result is tangible. Your legs feel stronger. Cramps become less frequent. Endurance improves. And the benefits aren't limited to your legs because the vascular system is connected, improving circulation to the lower body, also supports better cardiovascular health, improved brain function, and even metabolic efficiency throughout the body. What we often think of as a muscle problem, weak legs, sore calves, painful cramps, is frequently a circulatory problem in disguise. And when we repair the vascular system, we're not just addressing symptoms, we're restoring the essential infrastructure that powers mobility, strength, and independence. So while eliminating processed meats and refined sugars may seem like a dietary choice, it's actually a biological investment, one that directly improves how well your legs perform and how long they can carry you through life with strength and stability. The path to better leg health doesn't begin with more stretching or a new fitness plan. It begins in your blood vessels. And the foods you choose every day either nourish or damage those vessels. By making the right choices, you can protect them and by extension, protect your mobility, vitality, and quality of life. The human body has an extraordinary capacity for healing. That's not a metaphor. It's a measurable biological reality. Every cell, every tissue, every organ in your body is in a constant state of renewal. Your blood vessels can regenerate, muscles can rebuild, inflammation can resolve. But for this to happen, the environment inside your body needs to be supportive, not hostile. And when it comes to leg strength and cramping, the environment is deeply shaped by what you eat. We've discussed how processed meats and refined sugars damage blood vessels, deplete essential minerals, and interfere with muscle metabolism. These aren't just theoretical effects, they're real biological processes that accumulate over time and show up in very physical ways: leg weakness, slow recovery, heaviness when climbing stairs, cramping during the night or after walking. But here's the good news. When you remove these two foods from your diet, the damage doesn't just stop getting worse. In many cases, it begins to reverse. Let's start with the blood vessels. When you stop consuming processed meats, you reduce your intake of sodium, nitrates, and pro-inflammatory saturated fats. These compounds promote the stiffening and narrowing of arteries. Without them in your system, the endothelium, that sensitive inner lining of your arteries, gets a break from the daily chemical assault. Research shows that within just a few weeks, endothelial function can begin to improve. Blood vessels regain flexibility. Circulation to the legs increases. Muscles that were once starved of oxygen begin to receive the nourishment they need. Improved blood flow has immediate benefits. You may find that your legs feel lighter, less achy, and more responsive during activity. Muscle fatigue diminishes. The tightness in your calves or thighs begins to ease, especially during prolonged standing or walking. Next, let's talk about sugar. Eliminating refined sugars and high fructose corn syrup has a powerful impact on insulin sensitivity. This is essential for your muscles to regain their ability to absorb and use glucose, their primary source of fuel. When muscles respond better to insulin, they perform more efficiently, they contract with more power, and recover with greater speed. And removing sugar doesn't just help your muscles use energy, it also reduces chronic inflammation, one of the most significant contributors to muscle breakdown and pain. As inflammation subsides, so does oxidative stress, which damages muscle tissue and mitochondrial function. Your muscles now have a chance to rebuild instead of constantly reacting to internal damage. There's also the critical issue of electrolyte balance. When refined sugar is removed from the diet, your body is no longer forced to waste critical minerals like magnesium and potassium. These minerals are retained, and as they accumulate back to healthy levels, they help restore smooth, coordinated muscle activity. Magnesium allows muscles to relax properly. Potassium supports proper nerve transmission. The result, fewer cramps, less twitching, more stable muscle tone. But the benefits go even further. Once you stop flooding the body with processed and refined foods, you create space for nutrient-dense, healing foods to take their place, foods that actively support leg health. Whole fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, and seeds contain antioxidants that protect your blood vessels. Leafy greens and avocados are rich in magnesium and potassium. Berries offer anti-inflammatory polyphenols. Beans and whole grains stabilize blood sugar, which reduces the demand on your insulin system. Fatty fish and flax seeds provide omega-3s that calm inflammation and support vascular repair. These foods don't just prevent damage, they provide the raw materials your body needs to regenerate muscle tissue, improve circulation, and regain lost strength. It's important to recognize that these changes don't require perfection. Even a moderate reduction in processed meats and sugars can deliver noticeable benefits. Many people who make these shifts begin to feel improvements in 2 to 4 weeks. They report fewer nighttime cramps, stronger legs during activity, quicker recovery after exercise, and a renewed confidence in their ability to move without discomfort or hesitation. This process is not about strict dietary rules or short-term fixes. It's about choosing to support your body's natural biology, giving it the best possible conditions to restore itself. You don't have to outsmart your body. You simply have to stop interfering with its built-in repair systems. The most powerful interventions often start with the simplest choices: what you eat, what you stop eating, and how consistently you support your own healing from the inside out. So if you've been struggling with leg cramps, weakness, or declining performance, know that the solution may be closer than you think. You don't need an advanced diagnosis or a complex treatment plan. Often, the most profound improvements in circulation, muscle energy, and comfort come from something entirely within your control. The decision to remove the foods that disrupt your system and to nourish your body with what it's truly been waiting for. By eliminating processed meats and refined sugars, you're not just subtracting harmful elements, you're opening the door for strength, resilience, and restoration to return, beginning right where you feel it most in your legs.